last week, this was last week, we got a demo from Dean about of course, and I think it was actually cropping center, something like that. Question was, yes, SQL update. Today, demos. Hello, demos. No
Nothing
demos
from me today.
No, what?
Busy week, busy other bits and pieces.
I could say go home, but you're already home.
Maybe Jasmine has one.
Jasmine, he's got a black thing.
Yeah, I'm working on some UI stuff, but yeah.
We can check some PRs.
Yeah, could do that.
Topics, questions? Topics 1.0, breaking change, made Bertrand sad. We changed one, I think we got one breaking change in 1.0, and we knew it, and we said, well, nobody is using that. Well, actually Bertrand is using it, so it's funny. It's a minor change, but it's still a breaking change from RCP. So that's it, and code updates. Orchard 1, I think there was nothing. Check. Nope, nothing new on Orchard 1, Orchard core. From last week. So contributor, ensure shell terminating and disposing. So Jean-Thierry still tweaking the way shells are released. Just a reminder that it's not easy because when we restart a tenant and we need to reload the shell entities like shell scope, shell context, and everything, or even when a shell scope is released, well, when a shell needs to be reloaded, all the scopes which are currently alive need to be done when we can restart the tenant. So if there are requests ongoing and then you decide to restart the tenant, we wait for these requests to be done before the next request will trigger the reload of the tenant. So it's not an easy task. And this is just white space. And you see like some looking stuff and counting releases, release scopes. And to do that, every time a new scope is created, we increment a counter. And when every time the scope is released, then we decrement the counter. And we can only restart the tenant once this counter is 0. Simple. So that obsolete IContentAliasManager, which is related to what Bertrand found. So this class here, so this interface, IContentHandle manager or IContentHandle provider actually, and now it's a manager that is updated, has been changed from IContentAlias provider to IContentHandle provider. The idea being that alias was a bad name because it was in conflict with the alias part, and they are two different things. They are related somehow because a handle, how it's now, as it's now called, can come from an alias, but handle is just a generic term to say you can get a content item from different ways, like a content item ID, a slug, an alias, a product ID, whatever kind of identifier you want to give to your content item. And then when you load the content item by its handle, you provide the prefix and well, yeah, usually it's prefix colon edit identifier, and this way you have one method to get items from different, or you can have multiple ways to identify stuff. And it was called alias before, but it was confusing with alias part, even though there is an alias handle now. Okay. ID for form part. So now you can provide an ID for a form part. And the coming soon is updated. So assume it works, good. And also defining the position. So form element part. What is a form element part? And why is it added there?
So the form element part was a part that you can put on an input element or any of the others, which allows you to set an ID for it. What Niraj has done there is just reuse it on the actual form itself, so you can also set the ID for the form.
That's super not obvious when you read that. Form element part, that the form element part lets you define an ID. Interesting. What else can you define with the form element part?
Just the ID, I believe.
Oh.
So I think it's just a part that makes up most of the standard elements, like an input or a boolean or a.
Okay, that's why. Okay,
Yeah.
it's just like a base part. I see. Okay. So it's been added to the form itself in this case. Let me check something. Form wrapper. And here we say, if it has that, then use the ID. Okay. It doesn't assume it has it, at least. It will say you can have it. Okay. A fixed Lucene numHits must be greater than 0. So there was an exception. Find an issue, and then Jasmine is fixing it. I saw that. Maybe I should have commented on that. It's been since the first commit you had this issue. It can't compile if you don't put a space, right? And now you're checking that we have a correct number of items. Okay. Bound checks. Good. Fix the core example in README. Oh, new contributor. Jonas. Okay, so here, what was wrong with the example? I don't agree that it's an issue with this example. You don't have to do that. You might even not want to do that. So here, when you don't say anything, it depends on the Docker file, but there might be some exposed port, which is a default from Orchard, or in this case, so the P is a port that is bound from external to internal, or is it the opposite? So which one is what?
Yeah, the external one is the first one, and the internal is second.
80. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's.
Yeah, and we added a reference to the Docker documentation so that if they wanted to see how to expose a different port.
Okay. Okay. Then that's good. Okay. But in this case, the port 8080 is instead of port 80. Okay. Good. Jonas as a contributor, introduce, replace content definition recipe and delete. Okay, so now you can replace content definition and delete it. So new steps. delete, replace. What's the change here? Update, update, update. Oh, it's just because now there are remove and delete, so this one is called update. Okay. Remove type, so overall, Jean-Philippe and I assume Jasmin also helped. Removed all the references to type equals text JavaScript because it's not necessary. So for the environment, we are generating less bytes. Taxonomy field validation error message improvement. A value is required for display name. Okay, good. And same thing here, I assume. Okay, good. First PR. And Antoine react to the PR and adds a new contributor. Use recipe.DisplayName in Tenants pages. Recipe.DisplayName. Okay. So what is recipe.name then? Is it a technical name? Do we actually use it? That's weird to have a recipe.name and display name. Not even sure that we use that anywhere then, because we look at files and yeah.
I think it's used to know which recipe from all the files that we've collected to actually execute. So it's almost more of an ID.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking like name, display name. It's more of an ID, and then it should not look like a name, but more like, okay, it's a technical thing. Don't even use it to display anything. That's why we use the word ID usually, like, okay, don't display it, or it's technical only. The same issue we have with tenants. We have tenant name, and then we use like something that is reusable, where it should be a unique ID. Or users, right?
Or users, or content item owners, perhaps.
What? Content item what?
Content item owners.
Well, it's users, so.
It's users, yes. Next week.
At ShapeResult RenderWhen, what is that? I saw a PR and some discussions, and I know what ShapeResult is. I didn't even think we had that already. RenderWhen.
So the idea with this one is that in some of the display drivers, there was a lot of code being added to check whether something should be displayed in, say, a summary admin shape. So this allows the check to be delayed until after the summary admin shape has been placed, so that code doesn't run on the front end display.
Yeah,
just
when I
just a small optimization.
ShapeResult, actually, I was thinking about view result. It's nothing to do with the shape result as in view result. It's the driver stuff. Okay. And yes, it exists for sure. Okay, so now you can decide when it should be actually rendered. So we have location and we have RenderWhen. Interesting. Can you repeat why with the admin, the shape summary admin?
We can. There's probably a PR we can show its use in coming up for review shortly. So
okay.
I'll point you in the direction of where it's used there.
Media profiles, yay! And documentation. So let's look at the documentation. A media profile can be specified as a named argument to provide preset formatting commands. Profile asset URL, resize URL, resize URL profile. Just maybe you already did that. Does it work if I just say medium without profile name?
No, because the first default command is width already, so it can't be the default because it's the same filter as the other resizing commands. So it needs to be a named argument.
So if I say resize URL 128, it will set the width.
Yeah, which is annoying. Well, not annoying, but
that's
there's
weird.
4 or 5 named arguments there, so you can't change those or would be breaking.
And if I say the profile and the width,
then the width will override what's in the profile.
because we generate. How come? How does it? It's on purpose? Does it? Okay.
Oh, it reads the profile first and then it looks for all the other commands, just because there are times that you might want to. Sometimes you might want to specify a resize mode of crop. Sometimes you might want to vary that kind of more on a template location rather than in a profile kind of back-end setting.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been opposed to a profile URL. Even if you pipe it after with a resize to change a parameter, if it has one. But, because profile, maybe there are other things than resizing, but you can say also resize kind of other things than resizing, maybe. Depends on the filters you add in image sharp. Well,
yeah. At the moment, it's just been kind of extending, mostly about the tag helpers, to be honest, because the tag helpers kind of all work together, so it would mean implementing new ones of those. We could do it as a different filter or tag helper. It wouldn't be much of an issue.
I hate to see actually named arguments in Liquid. I'm not even sure. Is that, yeah, that's a Liquid. I'm not even sure that's a Liquid thing. Well, that's. I think that's just a fluid thing. Not proud of that.
Yeah, I couldn't say if you looked at the templates we had at the moment, the resize URL was using width and height as named arguments.
Yeah. And also we have them for tag helpers because tag helpers are named. Tag helper arguments are named. Oh, look. Actually, no, it's a Liquid thing. I feel better now. I thought I had added the named argument and it was not part of the standard. But no, you can, apparently. Okay, well. But you understand that the syntax is weird in Liquid, like the filter name, colon, parameter name. That sounds weird. I think shortcodes is better, right, for that. Shortcodes, there is a space, and then you pass color equals foo or foo and a nameless variable. It's better, I think, the shortcode one.
Yeah, it makes more sense. I was looking at that example code in there and thinking, is it supposed to have those 2 colons? Because you don't, yeah. It's not obvious.
That's why it feels weird when I read that. Okay, well, that's good. We have media profiles, and you used that, or you fixed something else? You used it. Profile, banner, and now I assume we have updated the recipe with a banner profile. And does it mean we have a step? Wow, you're too good, Dean.
Been doing it too long and all the things I have to add.
Beautiful. But what could be even more beautiful is that the step was documented. It is not right. That's okay. You can't ask for everything. You can't be 100% perfect. Okay, good. Removing duplicate LangVersion entry in the CS proj. And I think, yeah, now I see it where it was the duplicate. Latest and 80. You have to make up your mind, right? And it's in the that's a bug. Okay, orchard build, which is common to every project.
Props, yes.
Thank you. Oh yes, that's a location command props. Thank you. Add support for using remote source in MediaStep. Lucas is back. So add support for using remote source in MediaStep. The MediaStep will let you do what? Import a media in the media library from a recipe. So now you can say, I would have some comments to add to this PR then. So it works, but until it doesn't work. URL where the content is read from, source path, source URL. So 2 comments then. So something I do very often in my work is, so I accept files to be used for configuration. And what I do is that I look if the path starts with HTTP. And if it does, then I download the file. Make a temporary file and I load this local file. And I think it would be interesting to just use a single property and just check if we have HTTP or not, assuming that you don't want to do FTP or whatever, right? Okay, even on Git raw files, you can point to an HTTP URL with the raw domain name. So that might be more interesting to use a single property and just read HTTP or not, because it might not be obvious otherwise that you have another property for that. And this is not very resilient. Like I think we need a timeout and catch exceptions or retries, because network is spotty and it might block completely the setup, and then you don't know what to do, or it might fail, and we need to know, okay, let's go on and don't import the media and report in the log, or fail the recipe, some things like this. See, we have some tries here because the file might not be able to read, so we need to do the same thing. At least if we do something special for the local files, we should do the same thing for the URLs. But that's good. I mean, that's better than nothing, but just improvements that could be done. So Antoine, because you are on top of this, I'm sure you will find an issue with suggestion. Admin UI permissions adjustments for edit. Oh, so it has been done. Yes, Dean, we talked about it with Jasmin after the triage meeting when you left us miserably. Like so mean. So I looked at it and then I understood everything, and I think I didn't really agree about that. But actually, I thought about it yesterday, and I'm like, maybe let's take common permission as the interface, like the abstract concept, and the permission as a concrete thing. And then we can just convert these common permissions to the concrete ones if we need. So I'm fine with that. Okay, I didn't want to change it because it was not necessary. That's just a risk. But okay. But actually, what I agreed with is the fact that, so this one is gone. Where is what is the class, Jasmin?
Content types authorization handler, I think.
Thank you. So what I agreed with is,
and I removed it.
The fuck? Jasmin?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, because people want to be. I talked with Jean-Thierry, and he said the issue there is that we have content items that could have a owner that is equals to null, so it adds a possibility of
okay,
passing there.
So you did the way that we talked about, which is
just pass the owner. But we had another point, which was with Dean. Another debate, which was if we should always pass the owner by using the content manager and creating content item everywhere. But yeah.
And this also we agreed with Dean that no, just use the content manager.
Yeah, because there's one place where I added the handler, authorization handler. Authorization service extension there. I added one extension for one method, and we do a loop. We create content items, and using the content manager there, it's going to trigger the events for each content type that we have. So it could be exponentially getting slower if people have done something funky in their events.
Content manager, and this way, in this one, you create a new item. Okay, so this extension method is to test if you can do something on a specific content type. And because we don't manage content types, you have to create a new fake temporary content item and check the permission on that. And if you can do that with this content item, then you can do it on the content types. That's what we assume. And we assign the owner to the current user. Okay. What I don't like about that is this method name doesn't mean anything in English. I'm French, and I can tell you that I don't understand what this thing does. Is authorized to a content type async. To do what? Not to something. You are not authorized to something, I think.
But yeah, because the permission is dynamic. So
I know what you mean. What I'm saying is that this word, this name, doesn't express what you mean. So
yeah, maybe we could rename this.
That's just. And I implore any native English speaker to
find something better.
To just confirm or not what they understand when they read this method name, but I don't think it makes any sense.
To be honest, I read it and I was able to figure it out, but I couldn't figure a better one to be. There is a couple of things on this PR which are good, but we should probably let everybody know about. This is if you find the contents driver in here.
Yeah.
I'll give you the example of where we use the RenderWhen.
The contents driver, which one? This one, or the one that is called for that drives everything?
The one that drives everything.
Didn't we remove that?
Yeah, but we need it because now we're creating content items with the content manager, and we need to have.
Okay, Dean, talk.
If you scroll down just a little bit more, you'll see that the shapes there are only added when that permission is, the shape is added, but the shape is only rendered when that permission passes. So the point here is to not have all that authorization happening when you're just running a normal display in detail mode, and only allow it when the shape's been placed in the summary admin.
But why is it better than in the view? Because if you don't render the view, then... So
the reason for it doesn't want to move it out of the view because there's a wrapper div, and is it a drop-down menu, I think?
Yeah, there's the action menu, which will render with nothing in it. So we use the JavaScript to verify if there was content in the action menu. This way, we're just not rendering the action menu. If the person has no permission allowed to do anything, so we're not even rendering something in the menu. So why render the shape?
So here, contents, buttons, actions, summary admin. And before it was a set of shapes. Now it's one shape. No, is it? No.
It's results. Yeah, it's
two.
A set of shapes.
So contents metadata shape, contents button edit summary. Actions menu, and before you see we had many buttons here, many shapes.
Yeah, there are higher. If in the code, there are higher.
Some of them go into the actions zone, and some of them go into the actions menu zone. So this is actually preventing that zone from being created if the permissions aren't there.
But so it's not an issue then that we are rendering this meta shape that will contain multiple buttons and we can't put stuff between buttons, so it will be an issue.
Well, we render all the time the button. This is the issue there, and because it's just the items in that button that are.
Okay, so it's also fixing the fact that in the menu we see buttons that we should not see because these are menu items.
Yeah.
That was the primary goal of the PR. The RenderWhen's just an optimization too, because I just didn't like doing all that work on all the front end display, so it just stops it happening.
It makes sense to it also at the driver level. That's not an issue, I think. Might be even better because we were just generating the shape and expecting people to say, no, this one we don't want. So you have to know about that shape.
Yeah, we do this and we return null from some other drivers when we don't want to render. But most of those kind of checks have most of them don't call off into a service, like an authorization service, where you don't know how much work is going to be done in it. Most of them kind of just check a setting or something, which is fine, but.
Why equal to dynamic? It was there before, but.
There's probably a little bit of work to do on those actual shapes because the shape new content item isn't quite right either, and it doesn't need to be dynamic. It should just be a initialized view model, but that's another issue to fix.
Yeah, I think it was an old way of doing the things, and we. Yeah. So where is the context used here? Context, I don't see it. Context user, okay. So for the current user. Okay, and this is the contents driver, and what's happening. So this is edit, but on display, is there an optimization to do here that it's admin, so we don't want to render the shapes or to generate them. So here, or do we not care? So summary admin.
So the shapes themselves don't get generated, only the shape result does.
Okay.
And then because it doesn't get placed, pretty much the only allocation is a dictionary to say that it's going into the summary admin
Thank you.
location, and then it drops out kind of immediately beforehand, or as soon as it's not placed.
Yeah, I want to prevent any call to authorization service for any, because we will call that so many times then for each content item, each button, many times for each button. So
yeah, so what this does now is it looks to see if it's placed. If it isn't placed, it then checks this func. Sorry, if it is placed, it then checks the func. If it isn't placed, then it just returns and the func doesn't get called.
So even though we check the permissions here to know if we have to render this shape, we still have to check the permissions in the view individually to render each button individually, right?
Yeah, not everywhere.
Then, yeah, an optimization could be to store the result here as a property of the shape.
Yeah.
I just to prevent multiple calls to it, because here if we do that in the driver, then we know the result for the current user that they can't publish, they can't delete, they can't preview, they can't clone, and have a problem. But it could be if we make a strongly typed shape, then we could have a property. But just, well, that's fine.
Yeah, because it's dependent on what you're doing there. If you're displaying a publish button and maybe you have access to publish but not edit, so if you put the result, maybe you're going to need to check still for a specific permission in the view.
What is that? View not owned items.
You changed that. That was I liked what it was called before, Jasmine.
Jasmine is super bad with names. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jasmine. You are good with many things, but naming.
I prefer doing HTML. It's simpler because all the names are there for me.
So permission. Okay. So the permissions we have here, what class is that? Permissions: preview content, preview own content, clone own content, and all the, okay. And this one is new: view not owned items admin content list. So it's a permission just for view.
Yeah, it's going to display restricted content items for a user or not, but because right now we're displaying every content items that someone would have, like if you're adding the permission to edit a content type, a specific content type, then if I go and create a content item of that type with another user, he's going to be able to see those content types too.
Let me see if I can explain that a little bit better. So when you're the standard admin user, you get to view everyone's content because you're kind of the super user on the site. When you have a role, say like an editing role or a contributor role, you need to be able to only view your own content or list your own content in the admin list.
That's true.
Wow, that was kind of how the system was I guess built, I suppose.
Well, we talked about it, I think, on Thursday. And we said, well, it's at this level, it's fine to know that an item exists, but we can't edit it or view it.
Yeah, this adds the ability of seeing it or not, because maybe some content items could be hidden for other users. I mean, if you can just see your own items, which is something that I use for my website, because not everyone can see the items of other users, they can just see their own.
But at at that point, I'm like, why put a permission? It's either handled by the system or it's displaying everything. Why would we have an option to say
one of the problems is that it's actually not handled by the system. So because of the way the permissions checks work, we look to see if somebody has permission to edit or publish a content type. But if they're, for example, a contributor, they don't actually have permission to publish it. They just have permission to create it. So because of the way the permission checks were working, you didn't see any of their items, or they didn't see any of their items when they're in quite a restricted kind of view of the admin. So there's there's a nice little change there which can check that permission basically, which says, and the main name might not necessarily be right, but if you're an administrator, then or you have this permission, then you can see content items that are owned by everybody. And if you don't, or if you don't have this permission, you're just a contributor, then you just see the things that you're working on.
So I think it's not a permission. I think it's a setting, and the permission is still view content or list content, or probably view content, because if you can view it in the admin, maybe you can view it in the front end, I don't know. Or maybe we need a permission called list content, like to know about it, that it exists, to not have the details, but to be able to know that it exists, like display a summary admin. So list content might be a permission, but a setting will let you grant this permission, and you don't have, wait, if it's a new permission, then yes, it's a new permission and you can use it directly. If we think all the existing permissions are sufficient, it should be a setting, and then the handler should provide this permission, like view content. So I don't disagree if you think it's better to have a list content.
List content is really the name for it.
Thank you. Which would be that in this place. And that would make more sense then. But if we could just use the view content, then we will not need a new permission, but just a setting to be able to assign the view content. If the setting is there, to react to, I can list the item, even if it's not mine.
It's a little bit to do with the SQL queries and the way that they all get assembled. I do think the permission is probably the right approach.
Okay, then it's okay. Then maybe name it list content.
Yeah, because the view content is by default enabled as soon as you have the anonymous user set with it. So the anonymous user has the view content permission, so every other user is able.
You might not be able to view this content type because you don't have access, you can't view, but you might be able to list it. That's what we say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the right name. And
yeah, and view also, and we added and that's why also we added preview or something, because which is a permission that one of the devs from Lombic added recently, because there was an issue. Access content API, yes, access. Yeah, it's kind of related to that. So the access content API was there if you can't view a content item, but if you could actually request it from an API, you could get all its content. Because sometimes in the UI, we will not display something that we don't want users to display. But with the API, you could see it. So that's why we have a new API. So same thing for listing. To be able to know that the content item exists is also a permission. Can I even know that it exists? Yes, you can. Boom. Okay, I get it. Thank you. As long as there are two pairs of eyes, assuming you both have two eyes, then I'm fine with that. Trust. There is always an explanation. Good. Missing pipe. Why would we miss a pipe? Never miss pipes. Where is that? Well,
I might miss a pipe.
This is in documentation, not even in the documentation. Okay, that's good. So people are testing. Admin UI responsive behavior. Now everything is responsive because before it was not responsive.
Yeah, it was, but there was some tweak.
So we need to find some contracts for Jasmin because it looks like he's got too much free time. Between all the permission stuff, this thing, the dark theme.
Yeah, it's Dean that makes me worse. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my fault. I told him if he was doing this, he needed to do the dark theme as well.
How do you transfer pounds to Canada, to Canadian dollars?
I don't know, but I think it would be good for me.
send them via pigeon? Or was it duck?
Is there some history between Canadians and oh, wait, New Zealand? You're not even English. You're from New Zealand. Well, you are British. Okay, good. So should we do this? We talked about fine, and we even saw the related class. Just mentioning, and I will open the PR that Jasmin started a PR after so many requests.
Yeah, just last night. Yeah.
/ orchard go. Pull request.
I was really surprised that we could not do that. And people were saying it was really complex to do, but I passed like 2-3 hours last night and I came up with that.
Something like that. It looks nice. Looks nice.
Yeah.
So this pop-up menu is not new, is not related to this PR, is it?
No, it was there, but I enhanced it for when, okay. Yeah.
Oh, so many commits.
Yeah, I need to refactor some stuff. So.
It's not complaining about that. It's just surprising. Okay, yeah, looks good. At the end, you say that we'll be able to provide multiple different themes like this.
Well, we could already do that, but it's just about adding some works to add some vars for settings, the colors and stuff like that, which we didn't do when we first did the admin thing, which is probably me. Yeah.
Awesome. 1.0. So Antoine has started a branch to ship 1.0. So we are actively working on shipping 1.0, fixing CI issues that Antoine found. And now all the PRs should run again with Travis. It was not for a while for unknown reasons. Yeah, known reasons. Travis decided to change their domain and their service, but now it's fixed. What else? I saw some things in the PRs. Antoine working on the sponsorship for the project, and remember we found that GitHub, after we talked about it, GitHub added support for having project level contributions. Is that it? It's not that. You are just adding. I don't want to be in this list. I'm paid. I work on my free time sometime, but I don't want to be in this list for this project. It's completely unfair. So will this be listed? Yeah, that's different. We need to talk about it. I'm not sure I want to be able to display users for the Orchard Code project, because then we have to decide who gets there. And we have to add people, remove people, and we decide who gets there. Like if a random user comes and writes one line in the doc and gets their name there, and no, like.
I think it should be there.
Certainly not being there.
Yeah, so for the same reason, I don't like to be. That's not something we should do. We agreed that when we talk about sponsorship, that not a company but an org-wide contribution to unnamed people was okay, but we had then to decide who would pull the money or whatever. But it was better for us to let users decide who they want to sponsor individually without even advertising them. So, Bertrand, what do you say? Sorry, I don't hear.
I shouldn't be there. I can speak for others, but I shouldn't be there.
Okay. That's just a PR. So, yeah.
But yeah, in general, I agree with what you said.
It's just about management. It's like it's very open project. So there is no one deciding for others. And if you think I decide for everything, then just let me know, shut up, and let's decide otherwise. But I don't think we should have such a close set. It's too complicated to manage. There will be political issues everywhere. And I don't want to. We are good without all these political issues, I think. We have done well by the past, and I think we should continue like this. And I encourage every contributor to have their own GitHub sponsors. And usually when they do and they contribute to Rothschild, I even sponsor them. Okay, all these ones in the list right here, I already sponsored them. But not Bertrand and not Jasmine, because Jasmine doesn't have a sponsorship page, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what? I never got money from you.
Yeah, I tried creating one, and I still need to fill in the tax form or something like that. Yeah.
Good. So that's, and when you do it, please let me know. I mentioned that Kevin is now having that, and so that, just an example. Okay, so and I will encourage everyone to have them so that we can. But yeah, we need to look into the. What was the organization we found? What was the not Open Collective? Was it Open Collective that now? So Bertrand found that you can now in GitHub set up Open Collective. Maybe it was that, I don't remember. Directly from GitHub, and this way,
yeah,
we could enlist the project itself to do that, and it will be, I think, easier to just assign funds to specific budget lines than listing people and telling who to sponsor. And in the case you don't have a GitHub page, a sponsor page, also that will be easier for us to help the project, even if you don't have a GitHub sponsor page, or if you can't have a GitHub sponsor page. Look, like Hisham cannot, because I think he's in Yemen and you can't support GitHub sponsors in Yemen. See, that's an issue. So, yep. Yeah, they didn't answer to my questions about Open Collective and whatever. So I assume we'll do whatever we want. But GitHub has now support for that. So maybe we can go with that, actually. That's what I meant, Antoine, when we talked about it. I didn't think that you will do a PR with specific names. So for anyone who listens, you can at least sponsor the guys who are in this list without myself and Bertrand, because we don't want to. But these ones, they have GitHub sponsors, and maybe, Antoine, do you do that on the contributors list? Link to the, or add an icon. Where is the contributors list on the doc? Let me know before I go and I can't find it.
No, contributors.md.
Okay, so contributors.md. So maybe the sponsors icon.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think what, that you want to do it, or you could do it?
That there is a category related to sponsorship.
What does it mean? Don't you manage exactly what appears there as tags?
No, they are predefined categories of contributions.
What? Oh, these are the types of contributions, but the links, can we add a link?
No, it's on based on the GitHub profile.
Ah, so sad. That would have been a way to expose that they accept contributions. Yeah. Okay, well, I don't know what to do then to advertise the fact that some of them have a GitHub sponsor page, or some of them don't want, or should core contributions on their sponsor. Okay. Good discussion at least. Thank you, Antoine, for doing that, but not the good solution. Any questions, comments? Am I missing anything? Do we have to add something? So that PRs. So 1.0, working on that. And that's all, I think. Yes, here release and reminder that there is a link there. Okay, we match. Okay. There. Yes, this one, this link. So we have issues. Well, this is not the. I wanted the issues tagged for milestone 1.0. So we have issues tagged for 1.0, and as soon as this is fixed, we can ship. We might close out some of them, like when we did for RC2. Some of them, I'm sure, are just false positive because they're too old and they just don't repro anymore. But that's the goal, to be able to ship 1.0 to fix these ones because they were assumed like critical for shipping 1.0. Okay, so if you don't have anything to do or too much free time, like Jasmin, and anything to do better than that, then just do that. Good. Questions, comments? Chat. There's something in the chat. Must be a link from Antoine.
I think we need to finish the user ID PR this week, but yeah.
Okay.
What do you think?
I will try to help or comment or talk about it. Yeah, we already mentioned that last week when you left about the migration strategies. Yeah, all good.
Yep.
Again,
Thanks.
sorry for being late. I didn't have a choice. Thanks, everyone. See you on Thursday for triage or next Tuesday for next meeting. Bye-bye.